And it's just about, questions and letting them, jump in and sharing, and we'll share our views too. And, anything that you want to talk about, just bring it up, you know,
Okay.
and we'll do that. Where are you based?
I'm based in Atlanta, but
You're the Atlanta. Okay, you are Atlanta. I knew there was somebody from Atlanta, so it had to be you because it's not Regina, who's based in Nashville. And
Yeah.
I'm LA.
You're with Fincannon?
yes, exactly. Yeah. So I've been with the Fincannons about 11 years
Oh,
now.
nice.
So yeah, and I did Nashville with Mark years ago. Yeah, I'm a casting director with them now. So probably
Okay,
about
cool.
5 years or so.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
great.
wonderful.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I
So
just saw
we
Mark.
do work all over the Southeast. So kind of
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Charleston is a big one, Nashville, obviously, Atlanta, New Orleans, Wilmington, North Carolina is really big. So yeah, I think the only series we're on right now is Outer Banks. I know Mark has some stuff coming down the pipeline, but Lisa May and I are doing Outer Banks.
Oh,
Cool.
that's nice. Yeah, I coach too, and I've been doing that for many years. And I have students who like, especially the ones that are the teenagers, and I say, like, what show would you like to be on? So Outer Banks. Always Outer Banks.
We
So
had no idea that it was gonna, I think it had to do with when it was released. Like it was released April of 2020, right when everyone had kind of been quarantined.
mhm.
And it was like it was what everybody watched because it was Netflix and it was like right. I think they got this like golden premiere date because we had no idea it was gonna
Mhm.
grow to be what it became when we were working on the first season.
Well, it
But
sort of picked up where Stranger Things kind of left off.
yeah, it did. It did. And I know for us, we do it from top to bottom. So we don't work in tangent with an LA or New York office. So that's kind of like, we love that for our Southeast
Mhm.
market, the way that the industry is sort of moving. So yeah, it's kind of right now it's our quote unquote claim to fame.
Where do you shoot out of?
So Outer Banks is out of Charleston.
Oh,
Which was there was so much controversy around that initially, because it's not truly the Outer Banks. But I think at the time there was like some legislation in North Carolina that was making it more difficult. And that was when there was like the bathroom bill and all of that initially.
mhm.
So they decided to shoot in Charleston, but we actually do shoot some on location stuff in Wilmington. So right now it's kind of Charleston and Wilmington, but Charleston is the base.
Cool.
Nice. Really nice. And where's most of your stuff out of? Is it out of Nashville now, Regina?
Yeah, well, Nashville and throughout. Basically, the stuff that I'm working on, there's a particular project, and this is great because their incentive just went up to 40%. That I may be going to India in
Oh
February
my.
Mm.
to pull some Bollywood actors for.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, right now, I'm just waiting for calls on some stuff that's on hold and
Mhm.
writing and casting some smaller projects and just
Yeah.
waiting.
We did Young Rock out of Memphis.
Yeah.
Uh I guess that was last year. It all starts to blend. Unfortunately, that the show is canceled, but it was interesting to see some of the Memphis locals who really honestly impressed me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so it was cool to see that because, we had always thought that if you're shooting in Tennessee, it's likely to be, Nashville.
Mhm.
But Memphis was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, Memphis, there's a place I teach there, indie acting.
Yeah.
And Forrest is really good about really mentoring the local
Yeah.
actors, bringing Cindy Hogan in.
Hmm.
I introduced him to Joe Lesh, so now they're really building a really great VO market for
Yeah.
voiceover. But I've been teaching for him for I don't know how many years, going out there to Memphis. But there are some people. It's mainly TV series. They
Hmm.
don't get a lot of commercials. They don't get a lot of, you know what I mean? A lot of
Yeah.
just film stuff. It's really weird. It's always series.
Yeah.
And of course, back when the firm and everything else
Mhm.
Hmm.
happened there, that made a huge difference, and that grew
Hmm.
kind of like it did before, when Heat of the Night and I'll Fly Away happened
Yes.
in
Heat
Atlanta.
of the night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then it died. And then it died.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, '08 came and Atlanta went, yeah,
Hmm.
we'll take it on. A
Hmm.
lot of things market from the
Interrupt.
very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting that Memphis has got some real actors that are working hard. I mean, like they're going to class constantly.
You can
Even
tell.
some of the markets that expect it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sometimes
sure,
they'll get used to so many
Mhm.
opportunities that they don't think they have to work for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, when I mean, I've cast all over the place, internationally too, and it's like they're still being judged on a Hollywood standard.
Mhm.
So, so actors have to really realize that. And when we found some good talent in Wisconsin, in
Mhm.
Hong Kong, in the Philippines, I mean, it's interesting how, because I mean, if there are film markets around, and that we don't even think about really, or
Mhm.
people that are studying and really want to get into it and what have you, and
Definitely.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
Talent is
really cool.
everywhere.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting, when I first started out, one of my first gigs, I was at Warner Brothers, is where I grew up, and one of my first jobs was Dukes of Hazzard, and
Mhm.
when John and Tom walked off the show, we conducted, and it was my search, like the biggest talent search in the history of television, I believe, at that time, and to replace them. And I had like tapes coming in from all over the country, from
Wow.
agents, from managers, and from actors unsolicited. And we looked at everything, and we flew people in, and we tested people, and we did the whole shebang. And at one day we had like 3,500 people wrapped around the block at Warner Brothers,
Wow.
and it was fascinating.
I
I
hate to
bet.
interrupt. I
You know,
hate
it,
to interrupt, but we have
Time is nigh.
a very fulsome group of people here who are. I'd like to welcome our guests. Melissa Skoff from Starcasting Hollywood, Regina Moore from Moore Casting in Nashville, and Kimberly Wistedt,
Perfect.
good, Fincannon Casting in Atlanta.
Mhm.
And our viewers have come in. They're very dedicated. They've been with us for the whole program yesterday and today. So I would like to give it to you. You'll need to regroup a little bit and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then go into it. You were already in it, but I had to introduce you on behalf of Women in Film. So
Well, thank you,
I'll
and
step
thank you.
out of the way and you go after it. And Melissa, pardon me, yeah, you're the lead. So lead.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and as the lead, I'm going to turn over the first explanation of who we are to Regina.
all right. Hi, my name is Regina Moore. I have been working in this industry for about 32 years as a casting director. I actually started as an actor, and had a producer approach me on set one day when I was shooting a commercial for him for Toyota. And he says, "Hey, I got these series of commercials. You want to do them? You know everybody in town. I'd like to have you do it." And I went, "Well, okay, if I do this, I'm going to make every casting director mad.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to be able to work." Well, I just had my second daughter. It was harder to travel to Atlanta and Chicago. So I went, okay. And that was in 89. So I love it. Um, I think casting is a real art, and it is a skill, in seeing name actors that you can pull into projects, but also those that are just about to move into a place that by the time that project's edited and it hits it either at the theater or on the screen, there's an extra name that people will recognize. And I think that's the skill that we have, seeing those talents before they're even, recognized, is being able to see it ahead of time. But yeah, I still work here, work in the Southeast, kind of really work wherever. But love this market and love casting.
Okay, Kimberly.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. I started as a stage manager from the University of Florida, and one of my directors was kind of my mentor, and he knew that I loved actors so much, but I didn't want the spotlight. So he was like, "Have you ever thought about casting?" And, you know, I think sometimes it's not something you always think about going into when you want to be in the industry. I feel like it's something that, like, I'm glad we're talking about more and more. And some universities are even developing programs for casting. But it's all to say, I went up to New York City and I interned with Tara Rubin's office, who does predominantly Broadway. And then when I graduated, I moved back up to New York to intern and apprentice for Bernie Telsey, who does all of the things. He's kind of a casting powerhouse out of New York. And then when the city life was just a little too daunting, a little too exhausting, I was still young and fresh. And I came back home to Atlanta from the suburbs of Atlanta. And I got right in with Fincannon and Associates, who have, you know, been around since 1979. And, you know, they've been such a prevalent Southeast casting office, and, you know, their caliber of their work is really incredible. And, you know, they're so widely known. So I was like, this is going to be a great fit. So fast forward about 11 years, and I've been with the Fincannons, and we've worked on things all over the Southeast, and TV and film, commercials, you name it. And yeah, I love this market. I'm so glad that I don't, you know, that I can be as immersed and not necessarily have to be in New York and LA. I've spent enough time in both places for work, and obviously interned in New York. And it's kind of great to be close to home and still doing the thing.
Great. Well, I guess that leaves me. I'm Melissa Skoff. I am Hollywood born and raised, and actually born in Hollywood. And from the time I was old enough to say so, I wanted to be in the industry. I obviously wanted to be an actress, and I studied from the time I was about 13. And then when I graduated, I have a degree in theater, film, and television from UCLA. And when I graduated, I chose where I wanted to work, like most people choose colleges. And can you guys see me okay? Because I don't see me up there. Can you?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah,
Oh,
as long
okay.
as, yeah, about like that.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
kind of low to the.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Put my chair up here. And I wanted to work at Warner Brothers. I had all sorts of amazing opportunities, which was crazy. But I went to work at Warner Brothers, and I very quietly, when I interviewed with a wonderful boss, I went into the steno pool, which they don't have anymore, but it was the secretary pool, which was great because it allowed me to work in various offices, filling in for people who are on vacation or sick or pregnant or whatever, and get to know people and see how they worked and all of that. And it was an amazing experience in itself. But when I interviewed with her, she was amazing. And she said, now, you don't want to be an actress, do you? Because we don't hire actresses here. And I gave a great performance. And I said, me, an actress? Oh, no, I want to work behind the scenes. And then I very quietly went to acting class like twice a week. But I decided I wanted to stick with Warner Brothers, and I went, I worked for some amazing producers and directors, and in production. And then, but my heart was in casting. In fact, I was working with Clint Eastwood at the time. And one day I went to him and said, Clint, we need to talk. And he put his arm around me, as he used to do. And he said, did I do something wrong? And I said, no, I'm quitting. I'm thinking, what am I saying? I said, I'm quitting. I'm going into casting. And he just smiled, and he said, okay, then we'll work together in casting. I said, great. And we did. And it was, you know, I started out as a receptionist, and I was doing things for Clint that I wasn't supposed to be doing. But when Clint asks you to do something, you do it. And it was a lot of fun and a lot of work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And every moment was worth it. And I had a great mentor, and we had a great team, and we were casting features and television. And then the department split. And when I was promoted, they put me in the TV department, and I co-ran that with my former partner, the late Vivian McRae. And then I went off on my own. And then I went over to Fox Broadcasting and headed up the TV movie department there. And then I went back on my own. And I don't know, I've cast over 150 features and TV shows, and hundreds of episodes. And I don't know, the last long running series I did was JAG. And I've done some independent work since. And then when COVID came, I've been focusing on coaching, and which is something I was also doing then. I had group and private coaching classes, and love it because I studied it all my life. And now I'm doing all my classes online as one-on-one private coaching, just charging the group rate because I don't have group classes. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. That's who I am. And I was just, somebody offered me a job yesterday, casting something very interesting, and I turned it down. Because to start up an office right now and pull in an assistant and get everything in shape instantly is just more than I could handle. So I just am right now focusing on coaching, but I am casting too. So anyway, that's who I am, and I don't want to babble on. So what do you guys want to know? You know, like, I mean, do you give us a question and we will all three answer it? Don't all speak up at once. Okay, let me start then. Kimberly,
Yes.
when somebody walks into the office in an in-person or even a Zoom, or if you're looking at a tape, what is it that perks you up? What is it that just says, this person is a contender?
For me, it's kind of like always finding sort of the business within the scene, sort of like bringing the sort of sterile audition environment to life, you know, and that can be just certain sort of spatial awareness, or like, you know, I'll always remember, you know, an audition where somebody was in the car and he's like kind of erratically driving, and his precision in terms of like creating this like real world environment in the space, and the way he was like moving the gear and everything, it was like I was transported from, you know, the white room to his place on set and his place in the scene. So I think for me, that always kind of immediately makes me like, okay, they are incredibly spatial aware, incredibly creative with sort of their physical acting, and just kind of transporting me. That's kind of like automatically, I'm in there, and I'm zoomed in and I'm watching.
Regina.
I totally agree with that. You know, you see consistent reads that appear very similar. Not call those vanilla reads. They're all kind of the same. And then you have someone that really took time to figure out who they wanted their character to be. And there's something very unique about what they choose to do with their space. Not starting to talk immediately, but maybe taking a moment so that I see them before I hear them speak. I get a moment to know who they are, because that makes a huge difference. How an actor chooses to step into that audition is very, very important, because everybody thinks, well, how do I get a job? Well, there is no exact way to get a job. You're given a script. You don't have a lot of information. So you have to make a choice. Now, whether it's a choice I want, I just want to know you can make one, because there's two things: making a choice and are you directable? Because if you're directable, then we know the director is going to be happy. But if you're not, and you only see it one way, then you're not going to be a contender.
Totally correct. I agree with both of these guys. You know, we're all in this together. Sometimes somebody just walks in the room and you get goosebumps, and they haven't even said, or maybe they've just said hello, or maybe not even yet. And it's just like, oh, this is an interesting person. There's something about the energy. There's something about when you walk into the room, it's your aura that comes with you. And when you leave the room after your audition or meeting, you want your aura to remain in the room. Because at the end of every session, we're going to sit down and lay out, if we're in person, lay out all the pictures or whatever, if we're online or whatever. And we're going to review what we've got, who the callbacks are, maybe we want to set. But it's all about, every audition you have is, it's a chemistry test. And there's 3 parts to that chemistry test. First part is when you walk in the room, do we like you? Now that you may be coming in to play a serial killer, but do we like you for that? And the second part is, how well do you perform it? How well do you live it? And the third part is, how well do you relate to the casting director or reader or whoever it is you're working opposite, because that does, as Regina said too, it tells us how you might be on set. And especially with newer actors who don't have as much experience, there's always room for that new person. But do we trust you to be able to conduct yourself in a professional manner? Because sometimes professionals don't. I had a guy, and I'll share this with you guys because it still blows my mind. When I was first casting Jag, there was a man I brought in for a guest star role, and Jag was a very talky, you know, kind of lawyery kind of show. And this guy had series regular stuff under his belt, and I mean, worked all the time. I was really glad he came in, auditioned. Everybody said, "Oh yeah." We hired him like on a Tuesday, and he was starting work like on Thursday. And Thursday morning, I get this snarky phone call from the set. "Why did you hire this guy?" I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. We hired this guy. What happened? What's wrong? Did he not show up? What is the deal?" "He doesn't know his name. He doesn't know one line. He doesn't know anything." I said, "That's not possible. Guy's a professional. He doesn't know it." I said, okay. Now we're already shooting, so we can't replace him. So I said, "I will fix this." And I hang up and I think, how the hell am I going to fix this? So I called one of my students and I said, "What are you doing today for about the next 7-8 days, like all day and night?" He said, "I'm available." I said, "Good, get your butt down to the set. We're going to pay you well. And you are going to not coach, you are going to teach this guy his lines. And for every minute he's on set, you're shadowing him and you're going to teach him his lines." And he said, "Great." He dollied off to the set, and I checked in with him, you know, during the day, every day, and everything was going great. He goes, "I know his lines. They're not that hard." Well, so I said to the producers, "Did we find out why he doesn't know his lines?" Well, they finally did. Wednesday was his daughter's birthday, and they went to Disneyland. And this was a guy who had heavy dialogue. And it's shameful because, you know, obviously he thought he could phone it in and he didn't. So that is something that is the greatest turnoff. I can speak for the three of us, because what it does is it not only costs us time, energy, and money and embarrassment for him, it causes embarrassment for us because we're supposed to know this. I mean, I'd hired the guy before. I never had a problem with him. So it's how do you really conduct yourself always? Because you've got to act like a professional if you want to be in a professional environment.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Just real quick, I was working on A Week Away with Beverly Holloway, and love Beverly. She's wonderful. And we had worked on the local castings and had a guy come in and read for a role, and the producer says, "I want to see him read for this other role." Didn't even have a chance to hold the script that long. And before he walked out to work on it, I said, "Okay, you know who this guy is. He's supposed to kind of be this arrogant guy at camp, but you have to make a choice. Does he think he runs things or does he know?" Because there's a very big difference. Does he really know? I mean, is there that confidence level there? When he came in, he nailed it and even said, "What's this guy about?" Came up with a different line that the producer loved, and they ended up putting it in the movie.
Mhm.
But the thing was, we went back to LA to hold the callbacks for those roles. And the thing is, guys, you have to set the bar. Because what happened is after certain people would read for some of those roles, they would leave the room and we would go, "No, no, no, it's in."
Mhm.
So 2 of the roles out of the 5 were done locally because they set the bar and they beat out the actors that were from LA. So you have to set the bar. That's the thing, because what we do is we sit there and we go, "Oh no, it's still this person. I still think this person's stronger." So that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Makes
I
sense?
I also give advice to actors to when they're audition as if you already have the role, you know. I think that you know, that takes away a certain level of sort of desperation, right? Like if I don't book this, I won't be able to make my rent, or you know, whatever it may be. Like you have to kind of come at it with this ease of like, I've already got this, so let's play, you know? And I think it brings so much more discovery to it, so much more fluidity to it. You know, I feel like you can watch an actor and you know when everything is writing on this read. And so that's something that I always like to say, is just play and you've got it. And imagine that you're on set that day and actions called and you know, what are you going to do? And I do think that kind of divides the pile for sure.
And I'd like to expand on that as well, because I agree with that, of course. But I always tell actors, especially ones that I'm working with and everything, because I have the opportunity to, as we do one-on-one, is believe in fate. You have to work for it. You have to have the goods. You have to have the talent to back everything up. But if fate is in your favor, you will get the part. And if you don't get the part, it's because the person who got the part, it was their fate to get the part. Because sometimes that will lead you to other things that you got it or you didn't. Because if you're that good that we were really considering you and you didn't get it, you were the bridesmaid instead of the bride, we're not going to forget you. Because we always are looking for new good people, especially when we're casting episodics, because you spend actors so quickly. When I was casting Jag, my God, you know, I was casting 15 to 25 people an episode, and and sometimes you get how it works, so that you guys know is that if we're working on episode 7, we're preparing episode 8 while episode 7 is shooting. As soon as episode 8 starts shooting, we're working on prepping episode 9. But sometimes I would get a script, and Jag was notorious for this. I get a script like on Wednesday, and I'd start casting it. We'd begin on Wednesday. I'd start casting, it'd be like 3 or 4 days in. And then a producer would come knocking on my door and say, you know what? We're not happy with the script, so we're going to give you this one instead. So now I have like 3 days to cast all these characters, but it's like starting from scratch. So we have to have all these good people, because we're not going to, recycle the same actors over and over in different roles. On Jag, I was lucky because there'd be like General Adams, and then like, a few episodes later, there'd be another general. I'd say, well, we really like General Adams. Why don't we use him? And then suddenly it would be recurs. And the actors would love it, and I would love it, because I already had him and we already liked him. So if you never know. In fact, this is a little off the subject, but it's something you guys need to know. Talking about small roles, some people don't want to go out on a little role. However, I'm going to use Jag as an example. When I first started shooting the show, there was a role for, and this was a few episodes in, there was a role for a yeoman. A yeoman is like an assistant in the military, in this case to the admiral. Well, the admiral on our show, John Jackson, was a series regular. So I'm thinking, this is going to recur, or very well could, if we like the guy. So I bring in a few guys. It's one line. It's like, again, it's like General Adams is on the phone for you, sir. That's the whole role. And I bring in some guys, and I explain to them that unless you have military bearing and presence when you audition, you will not be considered, because this is a military-based show. Now, some guys had military in the family, or they felt it, or they knew it, or they got it. Some people didn't. But anyway, I brought in a few guys. I brought in like 3 or 4 guys for one role, one line. And we hired this lovely guy named Chuck Harrington. And he did a good job with his line. And a few episodes later, there's the yeoman, called back Chuck. And then again, there's the yeoman, called back Chuck. Do you know that Chuck Harrington became a series regular on Jag off of a one-line role? So when actors don't want to take on a small role, if you have a ton of guest star roles, I understand. But if you want to work, you want to work. And those introductions can lead to other things. And I'll give you another example quickly. One of my current students, who's actually Nashville based, and was in LA for a long time too. She has a lot of credits, Broadway and film and TV. But she told me that way back when she was kicking around, she needed some money. There was nothing there. She had an opportunity to audition for an extra role in a commercial. And she thought, what the heck, it's a day's pay. So she did it. Now she went out there, she was an extra, no big deal. And it was a guy who spoke to a woman he was walking with, and she was background. Well, the girl that they hired to play opposite the speaker, the guy, was too tall. She towered over the guy. So they yanked her and they popped my person, my student in instead. Do you know she made $100,000 on that commercial? So you never know where that opportunity lies, and you never want to sneer at it.
Yeah, that's so true. I was working on featured and some stuff on Still the King. Very same thing. Had to have a preacher. Great actor said, "Hey, I'll do it. I'm not working." They liked him so much they made him a regular in the series. You just never know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying that someone with a super long resume may want, like you said, may want to do extra work, but that's just the whole point of how you can never gauge how important your time can be spent when you're working toward your career. You just never know. Sometimes maybe it's worth that day instead of sitting at home. You know, you just never know.
You never
So
know who you're going to meet.
you never know who. Yeah, exactly. Especially that for networking. And that's so true.
Yeah. And, let me add another thing too. There's another, he wasn't a student of mine. He was a friend of mine, really a good actor. And he was helping me with my computer one day. And we were worried about him, our group of friends, because he was going to lose his condo. He had no money. He was really depressed. And he's just helping me. And I said, have you ever thought about doing extra work? He said, oh, I'm not an extra, I'm a SAG actor. I said, yeah, but if you're a SAG actor, your rate is a little bit higher, and it goes towards your pension and your health and your welfare and your insurance and all. It does. Yeah, it does. I said, would you rather be on set working with professional people in the industry? Or would you rather be a stock boy at Target? I said, why don't you try it? If you don't like it, you don't have to continue. But try it, see what happens. You'll make some money, and just do it, and it'll give you something to do with your mind. So he tried it, and he liked it, and he started doing it. And he goes, well, my agent, you don't have to tell your agent. Your agent isn't even calling you. Just go, just do it. And pretty soon he ended up on a show. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was a sitcom. It may have been The Office. I don't know. But he became one of the guys in The Office, one of the extras, and they wanted to start giving him lines, but they got canceled. Now this dude does guest star roles. He's done features. He does commercials. He does everything. He is now a working actor just from the connections that he made. So again, just another example of what we're all talking about. Yeah. Did you want to add to that, Kimberly?
No, yeah, just that you never really know that sometimes, I mean, we've had actors that were non-speaking and then dialogue would start to be added. And then before you know it, they've done 8 episodes. And then you just, because I mean, obviously you kind of have to go with your intuition and kind of go with your direction and what feels right, sort of in your own manifestation plan, so to speak. Definitely like a fate moment. But I think you should just weigh it all, right? Like, do you have anything else going on? Do you feel like this role, I mean, it's one thing if it's a one-line bellhop, right? Like they're probably not going to expand on, develop a whole character story around that. But I think that if it's open and you never really know, you just don't know. And regardless, even if it is the one-line bellhop, you'll meet tons of people on set. You could start a conversation that'll snowball to the next. We even tell actors that are, super new or green and are getting started and they kind of want to know how to get their foot in. And, we obviously recommend, stand-in work. It'll teach you the lingo of sets. You'll be learning from absolute masters. And it's rare that on the series that we do that, like the producer won't be like, hey, let the stand-in for so-and-so read for this, and sometimes they end up getting the gig. So, and also we'll say even production work, like even working in the office or, being a base camp PA on set, you meet people, and we often end up auditioning these positions just because, you make friends on set, and then people will, email us to be like, hey, give them a shot, see what they got, so, I think that that's a really great way to to work your way in as well, especially if you're greener and you want to get some more experience and some more connects.
Good.
Yeah.
Next topic.
Anybody have a question?
Yeah. Come on.
I have a question.
Oh,
Okay.
perfect.
This is for like all the directors because everyone's different. What's the most challenging thing about your job?
Ah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Kimberly's laughing. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I mean, I think, gosh, I want to say balancing egos, but
Oh,
there's a little bit of that. There's so much subjectivity to what we do, so much opinion, one person's, gold is someone else's dirt. Subjectivity, availability issues is probably
there's always that.
yeah, I think that might be one of the biggest challenges. And also being the middleman, if it were our checkbook and we could pay actors exactly what we want or give them the world, I think there are so many situations that would be different. But I think the most challenging thing is being middlemen, so to speak, and is being the liaison between the studio and the producers and also like the actors and the agents, and getting people on common ground and pleasing creatively, but also budgetarily. And sometimes I think casting can be vilified in some ways where it's something that we're withholding, or it's something that we're not giving or we're not providing, and we are really just doing the best we can with what we're given. So those are probably like the big things that I think of sort of initially, but I'd love to hear what the ladies think.
well, it's funny. I used to like get maybe an email or from someone and they'd say, well, Regina, are you upset with me? You haven't hired me for anything. And then I reply back, well, the last couple of commercials I've had, you were not 4 and you were not 73. You're 21. You have to know that we don't decide on the demographics. They tell us. Then we go out and become talent detectives to find it. And then from there, we pick the best of what we see. We don't determine the rates, though we can negotiate to tell them at times, this is because they'll go to our market and go, well, how much can we do it at this market?
Yeah.
Well, I cannot tell you how many jobs I've lost because I fought for the actor and I wanted them to make good money, because I'm not going to ask somebody to work for $50 a day when they should be paid a lot more. And I know the usage is ridiculous because you can sit there and discuss it with them. Well, no, we just need to be able to use it forever. Well, how long do you think you're going to run it? Oh, probably 5 years. Okay, then just put a 5-year, cap on it. If you're really only going to use it 5 years, this will make it easier to go into the agents saying this is just for 5 years. It's not forever. And they don't understand what we have to go through to negotiate and to do the stuff that we do to hopefully get them good rates. Because I know some casting people that they just go with whatever they tell them. And it's like, we fight for actors. I know you guys do. It's like you try to get, but then there's some situations where because it's the type of project it is or the type of agreement, it is what it is.
Totally. Yeah. And also in terms of challenging, a lot of people wouldn't know how much we do now because I've worked, Vivian and I work together and I've had assistants and associates, obviously, all through my days doing this. The thing is, and I oversee everything. I won't spread myself too thin, even though I may be finishing one thing and starting another thing or whatever and overlapping. But the hours that we put in are insane. And I mean, I would have agents and managers call, I would return their calls like at 7 p.m. and they'd be pissed off because they had already left. It was like, why are you calling me so late? This is like the middle of the day for me. This is the first time it's quiet enough for me to return calls. So that's why. So if it doesn't work for you, I'm sorry, but this is it. I'm returning your call. But the thing is, it's like, what are we doing? Well, first of all, let's just say we're going to do a movie or an episode or whatever. first thing we have to do is make lists for certain roles. And then we have to check availabilities. And then we have to set up the auditions. And we have to collect, if we're doing it in person, all the pictures and resumes, because we need that deck of cards to have to work with. And we have to do all of this, and then we hold the sessions, and then we have callbacks, and then they're not happy and we have to bring in more or whatever. And then we finally get people set, and our work is not done, at least not in my office. I'm sure not in Regina's or Kimberly's either. Then we've got to do the cast list, and then we've got to negotiate all the deals, which before we do the cast list. And then, we have to make sure everybody is cleared with the guild, and then we have to make sure that everybody gets to wardrobe, and that, it goes on and on from there. So, and then overseeing everything, make sure everything's okay, that we don't get the nasty call from the set that the guy went to Disneyland. It's like there's so much to do in addition to quote unquote picking the people. Because, and also, like bringing in people that we really believe in, and having a producer director saying, I don't think so. I worked with a crazy producer director who prided himself in being a nasty person and had a reputation for that all over the industry. And it's like nobody could act. It didn't matter who I put on the list, they couldn't act. It's like, give me a break. And the network would say, oh my God, this is great. And he would go, hey, I can't act. It's like, what do you do with that when you got a slate full of can't acts, when you know that these are people who are named people? One time, and I'll share this quickly, we were casting, it was for a pilot, and there was I don't know, series regular or recur, I don't remember, but it was like a prison warden, and he described it in his writing as a Caucasian, paunchy middle-aged guy, the typical thing. And so I brought, some of those guys in, and then I was reading for another role, and this very good-looking African-American actor, terrific actor, came in and read for this other role. If I had to describe him, it was like if I was casting Obama, I would bring him in because he kind of looked like him, he was built like him, he had a nice, strong voice. And I brought him in and I read him for this one role, and I said, yeah, you got the callback, but let me also read you for the prison warden. And he read it great. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring you in for both. But the producer wrote it and wants a pudgy, overweight, middle-aged white guy. And you're not that guy. But if you hear screaming and yelling when the door closes behind you, just don't think it's about you. It'll be him screaming at me. So, but I'm doing this because I think you can do this role, and it's a regular. So he goes, I don't want you to get in trouble. I said, it's my call. He comes back, he reads for the first role, and the producer says, that was good, thank you. And I said, oh, wait, he's also going to read for the warden. I get this look that could kill. So now my actor reads the warden role, and he's great. And he leaves the room. I'm waiting for the screaming and yelling. It doesn't happen. And then the producer says to me, I see why you brought that guy in. He's good. I said, he's real good. And he said, but I want the paunchy white guy, whatever. And I said, no problem. I just wanted you to see him, but we can consider him for the other role too. So leaves. The next day, the producer walks into my office and he says, hire the black guy. And he became a series regular. So, like we think out of the box. Sometimes that's an uphill stream. Because they are, we're all playing in the same orchestra, but some people are on horns and some people are on piano and some people are on strings, but we all have to come together. And if not, that's called creative differences and everything falls apart. But when a producer director is open, like there'll be something like a doctor, like a 40-year-old doctor, in the hospital, and it's written one way, but it's written for a male. And I think that doesn't have to be a male, it can be a female. So I bring in males, but I also pepper it with a few females, and chances are the female will get the role. You don't know. It just depends on how open they are to saying, you know what, that's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. So it's about who you are, and you all have something special to bring to the party, and you got to bring it, leave it at home.
I will say to back to on all the things you were mentioning, in terms of what we do, what we have to do in terms of the deals and the auditions and all of that. We're also doing that within like an 8 to 9 day time period, right? Depending on the show. So it's like, that's also what is so challenging, which is coming up as Melissa was speaking was timelines. And then a schedule will change, and somehow you need your big guest star, 3 days earlier than you thought you would, and it's like, it's this all hands on deck, like mass hysteria to get what you need to get. So I think timelines is another hugely challenging part of what we do, and everybody always wants everything yesterday.
Oh yes.
And then also is that somehow we can police actors' lives on the daily. I think that was something that was really interesting that also popped up, is that sometimes production will rely on you to know where an actor is at every given time of every day, night, time. Like, I'm supposed to be able to keep like the guy who goes to Disneyland, like as if somehow we have like probation ankle bracelets on all of the actors that we cast. And at any given moment, we know exactly where they are. And, oh, did you know that they have a dentist appointment on this day? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm just learning of this now. I think that's another really challenging thing, is that like we're supposed to have the daily schedules of every single actor we cast, and we just cannot play God in that way.
Right.
Well,
and
go ahead, Regina.
that's really true, because I mean, I always tell people this, the reason why we have to be so very careful and make sure we can trust an actor on a set is because it reflects on us, but also they think we're related to them. They think we know everything about them. They think it's really unusual. So that's why people don't understand why we have to feel so good about them. We have to feel real good about the people we're choosing, because when they go in, they're representing us in a lot of different ways, but it's a big trust factor. That, yes, we have to trust you can do this, actually do the character, but also we got to know you're going to be there 15 minutes early than the time you're supposed to be there, not 2 hours in everybody's way. But the important things that you know about set etiquette and knowing who to talk to, and you don't go up and ask the director a crazy question, but there's a chain of command.
Yep.
And all of those things are very, very important.
I totally agree. And I have to add to that, because have you guys ever had, this is to Kimberly and Regina, have you ever had it happen where like at 4 o'clock in the morning, you get a phone call from some like poor assistant director saying, the guy who has the guest lead, the agent just woke me up and told me that he's got the flu and he's not going to make it. And his call is 7 a.m. And it's like, I'm on it. And then I go, who can I wake up? First of all, what role was that? And what type are we looking at? Okay, I know what we need. Let me call a trusted agent or manager and say, okay, who you got? We're going to give him guest star billing. We're going to give him top of show. He's got to get his butt to the set in 3 hours. Who have you got? And sure enough, because somebody's got to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all, during COVID, oh my word, with all the COVID protocols and everything, the moment that someone would test positive,
you shut down.
We would have to replace it. So oftentimes, to protect ourselves, we would always have a number 1 and a number 2 kind of preemptively set to go, because I knew we would get through this strike, because I was like, if we could get through the pandemic, and I mean, we were having to schedule, we would have to schedule quarantine, and we would have to our deal negotiation was billed in quarantine pay and COVID test pay. And everything changed with the way that we negotiate deals with COVID and the protocols and everything, because obviously actors need to be compensated for these things that we are requiring for production. But yes, oh my gosh, during COVID, I was like, okay, what urgent recast is going to happen today or tomorrow or the next day? Because there was a time where it was just like so iffy, where you just didn't know who was going to get a positive test, and how production would have to work around it.
It's interesting you said that, because whether it's a commercial or whatever project I work on, I always know who number 2 and 3 is, who they liked as their first pick, and always ask for a second pick, and usually a third. And I still do it, I always have. And the reason why I ask that is I go, look, I don't know, they may end up with the flu.
Yeah.
There could be an emergency in the family. But if I know who your second pick is, I can immediately call them.
Yep.
Mhm.
I don't have to go nuts. But some situations you can't, just because they were so adamant. No, this is L1 or whatever. And they push. But it does really help when we do have those backups,
Yeah.
because but they may not be available, but at least we know what they're wanting. So
Mhm.
it's easier to try to make up for whatever's happening in that moment. And believe me, guys, it's just like, you never know. You get calls. I mean, I can remember working on a series, and I don't know how many pounds I lost. It was for sick. It was like, see, everybody else went off on hiatus. Casting didn't.
No,
Casting
we
was
don't.
preparing for the next. That's
Yeah.
right. We were preparing for the next episode. We were preparing. And I literally would be going to bed at 11:30 at night, and then would start getting calls at 5 a.m. because they couldn't find their way.
Mm.
My husband said, "Are you going to make it through the show?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know." But it's nuts. It really is. You just never know. I mean, you think that our job, oh, it's easy. Like you said, Kimberly, you and Melissa, we just pick people. We walk it through. We are producers.
Yeah, we are.
We are casting producers is what we are,
Truly,
because
truly.
there is a lot of production that has to happen prior, during, and in
Okay.
the end.
Mhm.
I'd like to interrupt and say that we are now at a point where we can have some of our guests ask you questions.
Ask away. Who's got a question?
Well, Diana Durand has one. There she
All right.
is. So go ahead, Diana.
Hello, thank you so much for being here. I have a couple, but the one in my brain is as someone new to the Southeast who's establishing representation, do you find that you work with agencies of different sizes or like levels of establishment? Thank you.
Okay, Regina.
Yes, I kind of, I don't know. I guess I had a good, and I still do. I have a good relationship, especially with my local agents, because I allow everyone to submit. Because I'm just going to tell you, one agency may have someone that I would never see if they were listed with a different agent, because they've got their 2 or 3 that fit that category, that have proved themselves, and they may not get a call. But now they're with this other agency, so that competes with that particular actor's type. And if I didn't call that other agent, I might not see that new person. You never know when someone new's coming into the market. They may not get as many audition times because they may not have as many people, and it's more time and prep. But to me, if I'm truly doing my job and I'm trying to see everyone that I can for that particular role, then I try to include as many agents as I can. I may not like everyone they submit, but I'm going to give them an opportunity.
Mhm.
Kimberly.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. We run the gambit from smaller boutique agencies all the way up to the biggest in the market. And again, you just never know who they could rep. That could be really, really lovely. So I know that right now, we do kind of build, at least in the Fincannons, we build kind of like our own address book just from agencies that we've kind of like vetted or worked with before, and newer ones that come on the market that write us. We just kind of check out their background and their websites and that sort of thing, and ask a little bit more about their roster. But I think right now we're like, when we do kind of our wide releases to the Southeast, it's about 200 agencies right now that I think that we work with, and again, they run from smallest mom and pop boutique to biggest of the big. So yeah, we run the gambit.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, there are casting people out there that will only see people from certain agencies, and that is so unfair to those agencies that are trying to stay in business.
Yeah.
I look at everybody as my cohorts here do. I check everything out, and sometimes, I mean, I pulled when he was just 18. I found Vince Vaughn out of a smaller agency and helped launch his career. And the same thing with other actors and actresses. Lauren Graham had no credits, and she came in on an independent film I was doing, and she actually lost it to Jennifer Aniston. But I saw what she was and what she had, and she was like a ray of sunshine when she walked into the room. The minute she said hello, I had goosebumps. I thought, oh, I hope she can act, and she could. And then I was doing a pilot, and I thought, if the pilot goes, she's the role of Sarah. And the pilot got picked up, and I hadn't pre-read her for the pilot, and I brought her in the first day, first person for that role, which you never do. And we didn't even have offices yet. And then I said something so stupid to the producers and the studio people that were there, or network people that were there. I said, now I'm going to bring you the girl who's going to get the role of Sarah. You never say that. I knew that. And so I brought in Lauren. She nailed it. And the head of the studio was sitting there with his hand on his cheek. And he looked at me and he said, now, how did you do that? And she got the part, and it launched her career. So you never know. It's always challenging, and it's always a little insane. But when you see it, you know it. Somehow we just know it. And that's our gift, is being able to recognize talent when it's still a diamond in the rough.
Yes.
Next question. Is there not a next question? Come on, you guys.
I got another one
Oh,
for you.
perfect.
Go right ahead.
Girl.
Go for it.
Do you prefer to hear from actors directly, or do you prefer to hear from them through their agent?
Agent.
Yeah, through their agents, sure. Sure. I mean, unless you have a relationship with that actor, you know, like you're going to dinner Friday night, or you're playing chess with them or something.
Yeah.
That's different. But, other than that, yeah, let it. Your age. One time my agent at William Morris screamed at me because I said, I need to talk to the producers because this isn't right. And she said to me, I am the agent. You are the client. I take care of it through business affairs. I went, okay. And guess what? She lost me the job because she couldn't make it good enough for me to want to stay, because it wasn't working out. The deal that I had just wasn't commensurate with the work we were doing. And so I left. But if I had gone straight to the producer and director myself, they would have gotten it straightened out.
Mm-hmm. It's,
So-
I love to have relationships with actors. I
Yeah.
think it's, you do get really connected to some actors, but then you'll meet some that you meet just at a conference, and all of a sudden you're their best friend. And I'm like, and everything becomes very personal, and you're getting messages, and that's kind of overboard to me. You got to be very careful about doing that, because I'm not saying my time is more valuable than yours. I'm not. I'm just saying normally we're nuts. And when I'm trying to answer something and then they go, oh, well, you haven't answered me. And I'm thinking, you have no idea what I'm working on right now and what I'm doing. I'm finally going to bed at midnight. I'm not going to be answering, do you like this video of this, or something. It's crazy. So I think you have to be really aware of what you're asking of us at the moment, unless I said you are like super close friends and go to movies and go to dinner, and it's a different kind of relationship. You need to be aware of the type of relationship you have.
Yeah.
Totally.
Thank you.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen that movie? I think it's called The Green Mile with Tom
Sure.
Hanks. Okay,
Sure.
well, long story short, fun fact, they made that movie actually in Tennessee on Centennial Boulevard, right past TSU. But anyway, so the guy that played the prisoner, you were talking about, sometimes you just know that a person is going to get that role. Well, I remember watching the special features of that movie, because it's such a good movie, and like just the story behind that. How Tom Hanks also produced that movie, but he knew who he wanted, but he knew the person that was going to play the prisoner was not an actor, which I forget the guy's name. I know he passed away.
Michael.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it was just cool how he knew by looking at that man that he was going to play the role. And Tom Hanks pressed him and gave him private. He found someone to give him private acting lessons to perform that role. And that was one of his biggest roles that he ever played. And I just thought that was so neat that when you said you just know when you know, like your job is to know, like that's your craft, that's your area as casting directors. You know when someone's going to have that role. You
Oh
know
yeah.
by walking in a room, by those 5 seconds, how they stand, pose, talk, that they're going to get the role. But I just thought that was so cool. Like Tom Hanks believed in this guy who never acted and, gave him acting lessons. And that's one of his biggest roles he's ever played in. I just thought that was so cool. Like Tom Hanks, the producer, he does it all. But I just thought that
Yeah,
was so
Tom,
cool to
I,
he
I had
pursued in someone.
I had a chance to work in the casting department on that film.
Oh,
That's so cool.
And the thing was, Castle Rock contacted us, and basically we brought actual people in dressed for the part of the posse scenes. And back then it was Polaroids, right, Melissa? And we took Polaroids and they were attached to casting sheets and all of that stuff. And handed that stuff over to Kim Petrosky when she was ready. There was only a couple of roles that she didn't, because Tom pretty much had everything in place.
mhm.
That was an amazing film.
Yeah.
They used the prison, which they didn't have to do a lot because that prison's very old.
Oh, is that the one in Nashville? I've
That
been
was
there.
the one that Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I did
Right
talent,
down.
location scout there.
The Castle, Robert
Yes,
Redford.
Castle.
There's been a lot of films. I've done a lot of music videos from there too. Jack White did a music video there. There was a
Oh.
couple of artists that have done music videos there too. But he knew what he wanted. Tom knew what he wanted. And the thing is, I'm learning this as I'm writing and pitching and more of this aspect of it. You got to have some people in mind that you think, even if they're like that actor, that you really feel like are going to fit for projects. And Tom knew he had to have that type person to fit that bill. And part of that character was the innocence of this man
Mhm.
and this miracle that he was. And he knew him as a person, and he probably really came across that way to him. And sometimes you will hire someone because that is really pretty much who they are. That's where the typecasting thing people get in their head about, well, they've only done a lot of that. It's not that they can't act. They just seem to fall toward those characters sometimes because personally, and they just kind of are that person. Well, that's who Michael was. He would call the office and my secretary would say, "It's the voice of God." And I would be like, okay. But he was wonderful. And that was a great film that was shot here. And there were a lot of changes within that script from the beginning to the end. And it came out a very good project.
Or
I'm
Craig?
sorry?
I think, but before my time, but I think that one of the Fincannons, whether it was Mark, Craig, or Lisa May, I think that they helped with some of the local casting.
They did.
Yeah.
Because Kim Petrosky worked on it. There was like a couple of things. I think they may have worked on some of the main principles where I was working with the locals on everything. And
Michael was like, I remember like stories about him. It's just,
I know
how incredible.
it's just so incredible. It was such a good film. I
It
mean,
was.
it really was a wonderful film. And Tom has done such an incredible job of always picking things to me that just has so much depth.
Yeah.
I mean, Otto is such an amazing film. I don't know if you've seen
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah.
Just the poor guy's just trying to kill himself, and he just
The man called
Oh,
Otto.
yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
it's just so. I mean, he makes you want to watch everything. Like Forrest
Yeah.
Gump's such a great example. I mean, they found that kid at an open call, and the only thing he'd ever done was a church play. Jimmy Cupp was looking for them, and he was doing local casting at that time. And Tom Hanks heard him speak and went, "That's how I need to speak." Then it connected the characters.
It was the
That is
kid.
how the little boy spoke. Well, see,
Wow.
that's the genius of him as an actor, producer, and understanding how things need to connect.
Yeah.
But he was sick a lot of the time. I mean, his brother did all the running scenes when his beard was long and he was running on the road. But yeah, isn't that
I
crazy?
love these little like insider behind the scenes movie making gems, you know.
I know. Isn't it wonderful? I think that's one thing that we love about being in casting is you are in the thralls of it. You are part of the process and you get to see the end result. And know that you're part of it. And to me, that's what's exciting. I love to be able to call an actor and tell them they have a role. There's moments when I know that the agent needs to be the one to do that because you can just hear it. Of course, they want to be the one to tell them. But if it's people we know, because we may have to ask, are you available? You know?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Karen. Hey, Karen.
Regina, hey, it's Karen Carlson. So I'm veteran LA, New York, in Nashville for a long time now. And I just have a question because I'm so used to, I'm old school, studied with Meisner and Stella. I'm used to the walking in the casting office and having that one-on-one and using all those things that are going on in you to create the character and everything you've talked about. But this thing of doing it online now, you guys, and we don't have much time left here. I was hoping you would address that as the casting because Kimberly, I've never met you, and Melissa, I don't know you, but you two just see, I would love to walk in an office and audition for you in an office. But this thing on Zoom is, or whatever we do, we film ourselves. Any keys as to what are you, because you must get jillions of them, and now because they're online, it's very fast. What are you looking for immediately that we're not going to be shut off within 3 seconds? Now, my age limits me, so I'm not out there on constantly looking for everything. And Sharon Lawrence, by the way, you were fantastic yesterday. Thank you. But I just feel like you've got 3 seconds, and then if you don't hit it in that 3 seconds, man, next. Any words on that? I'd be so appreciative. Thank you.
I'd like to start with that one. It is not to your advantage to go put yourself on tape. It is to your advantage if for some reason, if you do it on Skype or Zoom and you're one-on-one, because then you're technically in the room, even though you aren't in the room, because you can have dialogue with the casting person. And you can ask questions. With the advent of the internet, people have become much, much more careful about not releasing things. I mean, we used to have what we called the Midnight Messenger at Warner Brothers and other places where we would be like there, our whole group, like calling the messenger saying, okay, 3 for Beverly Hills, 2 for the Valley. And at 10 o'clock at night, they would be coming and picking up scripts from us so we could get people ready for the next day, because it was the first time we had to be able to do that. But people would get the scripts. Then we started faxing sides. That helped too. But now everything is very quick. It's like, oh, it's due by 6 o'clock. Well, now, not only do you have to be the actor, you have to be the cinematographer, you have to have somebody there who is. And especially with little kids, I feel really bad for parents because it's their job to get the kid dressed and ready and get the crud off their lips and get them off to the audition. Now they have to be the cinematographer and many times the reader, and that's not their job. It's a really sad thing because when we had a slow time in my office, anytime it was a slow time, I pick up the phone, call agents and say, who don't I know? And set up general meetings. And I love general meetings. I love getting to know actors. And that's a really important part of it because it's a relationship thing where you get to know somebody and you find out things about them that you may not think would work, but now you know they are funny. You know that they do have a background in comedy, but you never saw that in the dramatic things they were auditioning for, what have you. So what we look for, you kind of lose, the saying is you lose about a generation of performance when you're looking at it on tape instead of in the room. I agree with that. But still that one generation lost performance, and it's not always that way, but if it is, you've just got to figure out a way to make it better. Now, if I ask actors, what do you prefer, being in the room or doing it on tape? Many times actors will say, I like doing it on tape because I can keep doing it until I get it right. My response to that is, how do you know when it's right?
Right.
Because when I coach actors, and we do a lot of stuff for auditions, when I'm coaching an actor and they come up with a reading that's good, and I say, okay, what did you think of that one? Is that the one you, if we're just working on a scene, is that the one you would send in? And generally speaking, the actor will say, maybe not. And I say, okay, why not? And then we take it up because I direct them and I tell them how to make it better. Because your audition cannot just be good. Good isn't usually good enough anymore. Good has to be better than good. It has to be great. It has to be something that we pay attention to, because like you say, you're very accurate. There are casting people out there, not the three of us. There are casting people out there who will cut you off after 3 seconds or 6 seconds. There are casting people who will put your tape on and while they're texting to their boyfriend or girlfriend. There are casting people who will put your tape on and go to the restroom. You don't know. Some of them don't even bother, because some of them will only look at tapes and submissions from certain agencies, and that is appalling to me. So
what is your solution to that then?
my solution is, if you can be coached for it, do it, or just really look at it afterwards after you tape it and think, is this good enough? What can I do to embellish the scene to make it better? How do I own the scene even more? And if you think this is really good, then go with it, because you don't know. And even if you don't have a backstory and you have to make one up, chances are that's not going to interfere too much unless you take it this way and we're going this way. Chances are, because we understand you don't have much information, because now these days we don't supply much information.
True.
So you
True.
have to make your best choices. And if we see your best choices, then hopefully you'll get a call back and at least do it on Zoom, or preferably, in my perspective, I think in my associates' perspective too, it's like, we want to see you in person, because again, you are representing us. Once we send you to the producers, you're representing not yourself and your agent and or manager, you're representing us too. And you don't want to make us look bad. So
I came from the school of being taught that the casting person was your friend. They were pulling for you, because if you nail it, that's made their job easier.
That's true.
And they want to present you. So I've always considered you guys to be my friend in that room, and but I appreciate what you're saying. I can appreciate that. I think when you've gotten older and you do have a lot of credits that can be seen at any moment in time on television, on the computer, you can just go into YouTube, pull up stuff, and you have chosen to leave LA because you did not wish to put a knife to your face or your figure. You wanted to grow old gracefully and truly. But you've not been seen in so many years now. So when somebody goes in and they go, wow, oh my God. And I think, oh yeah, because I do it. If I see somebody at one of my peers that I haven't seen in 15 years, and suddenly I see them on site, I'm going, oh my gosh, wow. And so I'm afraid that gets in the way. If you're a veteran actor and you're submitting yourself online and are not online, but these things we send, that possibly gets in the way. Regina, you and I haven't seen each other in a very long time.
Yeah. But with COVID, that made it, of course, changed everything, because no one could be in the room. What I didn't like about what COVID did was, I think it gave, I remember seeing an actor one time post on Facebook that they were so excited because they got this part and it only took them 30 takes. And I'm thinking, okay, what are they smoking to say that on Facebook, that it took them 30 takes? That's my worry, is that it took them 30 takes to get what they felt like was a good read. Because guess what? You're not going to get that many chances on set. You might get 1, 2, possibly 3, unless it's a director that just really spends a lot of time grinding with an actor. You don't get that. So I really suggest for actors to never rehearse in the room they tape in. It feels more like an actual audition. Practice it in a totally different room. And when you walk in to tape it, it's going to feel more natural to what the audition process is really like. You're only going to get those couple of shots, and try 2 or 3, because it might make it feel more genuine to what it would be like if you were back doing it the way we used to. Because I think they start taping, oh, let me try that again. Oh, let me try that again. And before you know it, they've done 20 takes to do one good scene. Practice it outside of the room like you would if it were an audition. But again, it's what you bring to the table. It's the bar you set, Karen. And if you're the right person, we're going to feel that you're the right person. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do that, as much as I can say, and I'm sure they agree, when you're not in the room, because there is that actually being in the room with someone, that's an energy that's different. But if you can really do the job well, we will see it on tape.
Yes.
Because if it doesn't transpire on tape, it's not going to do it when you get hired.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'll just jump in really quick, and then I've got to jump out. But you know, obviously there's a double-edged sword to self-tape. One, I'm going to touch on just a couple of positives. And obviously, you know, when I really started in the business 12 years ago, like self-tape was already pretty prominent, especially in the Southeast, just because of the geographical reach, right? It doesn't make sense to have somebody drive from Wilmington to Atlanta to do, you know, 3 pages of dialogue, maybe it's just a page of dialogue, right? So geographical reach, it was really helpful because we could see actors from all over, and you didn't have to come out of pocket for your gas and your hotel and whatever you needed. And I also will say we can discover and see many, many more actors than we ever would be able to see if preliminary appointments were all in person, because we have a finite amount of time. If we're casting 10 roles and we want to see 30 actors per role, I mean, there's just not enough time in the day to see everybody that we'd want to see to explore. So I do think that self-tape really expands our actor base. I think that we are discovering and learning and knowing many more faces than we ever would have before. And I will say, you know, for producers, they can dial in for our callback Zooms or our chem reads. And yes, of course, chem reads on Zoom is really kind of interesting. They can be finishing up their, you know, their previous feature in Italy and dial in from wherever and still have that access. I do think that there's a level of access that it gives actors as well, in that you really can kind of live anywhere and feel supported and feel like you're thriving in other environments outside of just the New York and LA markets, and you can be on your booking in your hotel room and dial into a callback or dial into a, you know, or submit your self-tape and not miss out on that opportunity because you're physically not somewhere. So I do think that that's kind of like what I want to highlight in that way. And we are, you know, moving into such a digital world. And I know there's good and bad things about that, but I feel like there's no way to stop it. And even LA and New York are seeing people straight off Zoom or self-tapes because they realized the level of access that they could also have. And how many more actors they could see, and just adding a little bit more work-life balance with self-tape. But I think in terms of going back to your initial question, how will you not be overlooked? 100% what Regina says, like raise the bar. If you've got it, you've got it. We're going to keep watching. But also a technological aspect of it. I know that that's hard. We are asking you now to have a reader and all of, you know, produce your own tape, so to speak. I do think that there are smarter ways to go about it, not harder ways to go about it, for sure. But, you know, if you have good lighting and good sound, we're going to give you that shot. Right. And I just wanted to jump in on sort of like you know, the doom and gloom of the self-tape. I get it. And, you know, we were always seeing actors in person for a secondary round, always with the producers at the production office. But it's not going anywhere. And I do think it should add a level of positivity that for newer actors or for actors who aren't sort of on the radar for casting, it gives you more of a chance.
That's true.
I do agree with that. It does give more of a chance.
So many more, you know, and we're more willing to be like, oh yeah, let's just add them into the audition self-tape, when if we only had time in the room, we might not be able to give you that slot.
You're right.
I think
That's so true. You know, Kimberly, it's interesting. I've had two different casting directors from LA tell me that when it happened,
Mhm.
the LA actors didn't know what to do because they never had to put themselves on tape because they always could walk into the office.
Right.
And so what the Southeast had been doing for so long was actually preparing themselves for what we do now. They are actually better at putting themselves on tape than what is considered in the larger markets. So there is a plus to that. And that you guys are probably much better
Oh yeah.
than what you consider the ones that get a better chance or are considered priority. Hey, the time and effort you've put in, it's showing.
Yes.
Sharon
100.
Lawrence has something you'd like to hear, I think.
Yeah. Sharon, Lawrence.
Hi, ladies. I'm
Lawrence,
nursing
hi.
a cold. I'm nursing a
Oh.
cold, so I'm not on camera. Or maybe I will just be bold and
Do
let
it
you
all.
guys know. Yeah, screw it. I will. Um, thank you. Thank you. This has been really informative, and I love the talent on this casting panel, what you all bring and your gifts. It's such an important part. And I tell young actors all the time that making relationships and making creative alliances with casting directors is more important than even with your reps. And you all, I don't have to explain it because you understand why. But I want to add, as part of the leadership of SAG-AFTRA, our union, I'm on the foundation board. I'm not on the negotiating committee, but just in case anybody here is not aware, part of the contract that we are looking to vote on in 2 days will require 48 hours notice for a self-tape, which is different than it used to be.
Wow.
72, only no more than 12 pages for a callback, no more than 6 pages for an initial audition. And we'll be interested to hear if you have thoughts on this. You will have the choice to either go on tape or go in person, which sounds like for casting, it's going to double the work.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kimberly.
Right, for sure. The casting has to allow a window of time for live Zoom reads, and they can be over Zoom. They don't have to physically be in the room, but just so that you can be live with casting. So we could say, hey, anybody that needs to be live for this, come in on, if you can come in on Wednesday between 12 and 2, like we'll be able to fit you in. So definitely the live thing, it'll be interesting, but I do think that like what I think we'll find is that most actors will still want to do the self-tape. I don't know. I mean, it'll be a toss-up, because I do think now, especially with actors that are getting, many auditions a week and that whole thing. And I think that's great. I love a 48-hour thing. I'm like, we should be giving 48 hours. There were crazy deadlines sometimes that I would see, not from our office. I mean, we've always kind of tried to practice 48 hours at least, unless it was a mass hysteria moment. But 48 hours is great. I think the page limit is amazing. I didn't hear 6. The latest I'd heard was 8 pages for the initial.
Sorry. You're right, Kimberly. You're right.
Oh yeah,
but
no.
12 for a callback, right? 12
right.
for a callback.
Yes, exactly. But I do think there were so many casting offices that were taking advantage of the self-tapes and asking for these asinine slates and pans and oh, and by the way, it's 15 pages of dialogue and we need it in 8 hours. And it's just setting all parties up for failure. So I'm actually a huge proponent of the parameters around self-tape, because actors, all of you have lives, and children and school schedules and all of that. And so I'm excited about the parameters, because I don't think self-tape is going away, and I do think that I very much want actors to feel supported in the process. And yeah, that's all I have about that.
Yeah, I think it's something that needed to be addressed. I'm always allowed more time. I just think people need time. I don't know if it was the actor side of me or what, but I'm like, guy, like you said, Kimberly, people have lives. And I do feel like, as she does, that people will want to take advantage of being able to tape. And most of our people are local and they're better at it than most people. And like I said, the larger markets. So I think they've gotten used to it, and it'll be an easy thing for them to, as a go-to to do that.
Especially when you have as wide an area to cover as you guys do in the Southeast. It's a lot of different, it's a lot of driving. I had a student who was based in LA, had an LA agent, but he also had a New Mexico agent and had a place had a house in New Mexico. And he would constantly be jumping in his truck and driving to New Mexico and then staying there for a few days to see if he had a callback or whatever. And it was like, a lot of physical work. I think that this is really good. Now on JAG, the 48-hour idea is great. I'm all for, giving actors as much time as they need or want. But on JAG, they would write in a new character on, Wednesday night. And it was like, you got to get this cast Thursday because it starts shooting on, Friday, or it starts shooting like the next day. And it's like, we got to get this done immediately. And then there's no time. How does it allow for that, Sharon, or does it?
Yeah.
Kimberly, you can probably answer that better because maybe the actor has a choice, or
Yeah,
maybe you
right.
cast without an audition. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be
offer,
interesting
right?
if they're able to do it under the sort of situation. But also, what we've often done is we'll pull actors with a solid demo reel, check their avails. We'll also pull actors from previous auditions that are very much in the same vein. So along with their demo reel, like if and we can kind of package that up. We actually, like on Outer Banks, we had to cast a recurring guest star. I think it was we had like one business day, and we just pulled our go-to, our besties with a solid demo reel, and they were cast off of that demo reel. So we'll usually go to demos or potentially auditions that are in the same vein. Or, when we did the Walking Dead franchise for years and all of the spinoff shows, we would often reuse auditions because there were so many of the same sort of like, oh, you're a survivor, oh, you're in the villain group or whatever, what have you. And we were using dummy sides to begin with. So we would kind of recycle old reads. So that's a good note for actors to know too, is that like, we might be using your read again for something else. You never really know. But that's kind of how I would kind of jump in and try to circumvent that scenario.
I hate to break this up.
Yes. No, yeah, I know.
But it's time to go. And we loved you. And we thank you heartfully. And thank you for coming over, Sharon, and taking a look at today.
Yeah, good to see you, Sharon.
We love
you too. I love the Southeast. That's where I'm from. So it makes me feel really good to hear you all talk about it and brag on the fact that you guys are so good at self-tape. Maybe you should offer some seminars.
Aha. What an idea. Well, thank you so much. And I want to say on behalf of Women in Film in Nashville, you are the best, and it's great to have you in our sphere. So
it's really great to meet Melissa and Kimberly.
Yes, and likewise with you guys. It's finally,
very good. Yeah,
everybody.
Great.
Sharon,
idea. I'm going to talk about that and see if we can get all you guys back for kind of a doing thing, actors and casting people and talent people.
The do's and don'ts.
That's right. Oh,
go for hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, that would go on and on.
So valuable. It's really, really valuable.
It is.
We want to be good at it, and I've gotten cast from them, but I'm always wondering. So your knowledge, your expertise, that's a real service that you'd provide.
Too many actors don't understand the business of the business. They understand that they have to audition to get a part, but they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes like we all do.
Yeah.
So, so it's good for actors to learn that. Something that when I work with actors, I teach them about, like what really goes on, because otherwise they may not feel so prepared.
Right.
So anyway, but you guys are great. Thank you. It's great to meet you.
Happy Sunday, everyone.
Happy holiday.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Regina.
hey, Melissa and Kimberly, if you need to know some of the actors that may have moved to our area,
yeah.
we should switch back and forth and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm all about it.
All right. Sounds great.
Bye.
All right, you guys take care.